Hello, everybody. I'm Rob Moore. Thank you, Robin. And I'm from Behaviour Change. And we're a not-for-profit social enterprise. We work on strategic projects with environmentally and socially positive aims. I won't go into too much detail about what we do because I'm here specifically to talk to you about the Green Deal and our work looking into what's needed to create consumer demand for the Green Deal, which is the government's flagship energy efficiency policy. There's been a lot of discussion and huge amounts of work have been going into its creation, both within government and by the industry, but to date the vast majority of that work has been focused on the technical details of how it's going to be delivered. And there's been a gap in the thinking, we think, around how demand is going to be generated in the first place. So today I'm just going to briefly summarise what the Green Deal is and our role in it, talk about what we've learned from consumers and from stakeholders who we've been talking to, and finally give our recommendations on what we think needs to happen when the scheme actually launches. So the Green Deal, just a quick kind of summary for those that aren't too familiar. Domestic housing is responsible for 26% of CO2 emissions in the UK. Our love of tradition in Britain means we have some of the most out-of-date housing stock in the world, old homes that leak energy through roofs, walls, windows, etc. Developed in opposition and taken forward in the coalition agreement, the Green Deal is designed to transform the way that energy efficiency measures are taken up by householders. And it has the aim of retrofitting 14 million homes by 2020. In a nutshell, the scheme will enable people to install measures that will make their home more energy efficient, so things like insulation, boilers, heating controls, double glazing, potentially even microgeneration. They'll pay nothing up front for the work, but instead pay back that initial cost through part of the savings that are then made on their energy bills. The expectation is that the Green Deal will attract new entrants to the market over and above energy companies, so potentially people like supermarkets or DIY retailers, small providers as well, drive down costs and foster innovation through an open market and provide new green jobs. So the Green Deal is about creating this new market for energy efficiency. The vast majority of efficiency gains in domestic housing to date have been delivered through the obligations that are made on energy companies by the government. To date, that's been the CERT obligations. These have subsidised energy efficiency measures and have ultimately been paid for through levies on energy bills. So in essence, everybody has been paying for only some homes to kind of get the treatment. The long-term vision is to transition to a new way of doing things where, aside from retaining grants for those in need, individual householders pay for the measures that they actually receive. Creating a market like this that is viable will not only need the private sector to get involved as actual providers of retrofits, but also the active participation of local authorities, housing associations, community groups and so on. To date, even with what is quite a simple and compelling or seemingly compelling package of free or heavily subsidised insulation on offer, demand has actually been quite low. So to meet the Green Deal and indeed more broader climate change targets will require a significant uplift from current levels. Just a bit about our relationship to the Green Deal. So we coordinate the Green Deal network, which is a cross-sector collaboration of organisations, all of whom plan on being involved in the Green Deal in some way. It's chaired by Ian Cheshire, who's the CEO of Kingfisher, the chairman of B&Q, and it's funded by the network members themselves, but also by some grant funding from the Sainsbury Family Charitable Trusts. Members include potential providers such as British Gas, Carillion, Birmingham City Council, who are looking to be a provider, retailers who might be providers like Asda, Kingfisher, B&Q, and potential supporters like the National Housing Federation, the National Trust, WWF and others. The network deals with strategic issues where we feel collaboration will have a part to play. And recently our focus has been on consumer demand, and we've completed a project looking into what's needed to stimulate the kind of response that we think is necessary to make the Green Deal a success. We presented our findings to Chris Huhne in July last year and February this year. Unfortunately, when we presented to him in February, it was 2 days before he resigned, so that kind of stalled proceedings somewhat, but we're kind of back on track and speaking to Ed Davies' team now. So, what we've learned from consumers. Last July, we commissioned some qualitative research using ASDA's what they call the Pulse of the Nation panel, which is their own panel of, I think it's about 4,000 people, but it gives a really good indicator of mainstream opinion. So we use that panel to look at how people feel about their financial situation, their thoughts on making their homes more energy efficient, and how they react to different aspects of the Green Deal proposition. More recently, we've run some qualitative research, so some focus groups with small groups of householders around the country, allowing us to look into their reaction to the Green Deal proposition in more detail. Our initial quantitative research proved just how difficult it will be to sell the Green Deal to people, given where they are on some key indicators. Firstly, there's generally a low level of priority for home energy efficiency improvements. So 2/3 of people actually told us they're looking to make some home improvements over the next year. But for the vast majority, this is not primarily about making them more energy efficient. Only 8% agreed with that. When thinking about getting a Green Deal done, when it's explained to people, green is not the primary motivating factor that will make them do it. Lower bills and warmer homes and a warmer home are both considered to be more important than being green per se. And it kind of goes without saying, but money heads most people's worry list at the moment, and they're approaching anything to do with finance, loans, and so on with caution or speculation. Our more recent qualitative research, however, gave us a bit more cause for optimism. The focus groups we ran in Watford, York and Leicester allowed us to drill down more into how people react to the Green Deal proposition and the different elements of selling and delivering it. So we took people through the kind of whole stage of, of how they might find out about the Green Deal in the first place, through to getting an assessment, through to getting it installed, gauge their reaction to those different stages. We were encouraged by how, on the whole, people readily understood what is quite a complex scheme, and once understood, it came across as a compelling proposition, with some respondents even becoming quite fervent advocates to some of the more sceptical in the groups. It was quite interesting to see. The good news is that it has the potential to provoke widespread reconsideration of home energy efficiency, and offers a powerful combination of compelling personal benefits. So these three benefits were the ones that we isolated from research: an improved warmer home, lower bills over the long term, and no kind of upfront lump sum to pay at the start. However, we did learn something about the challenge that the Green Deal faces, in that this idea, if it's not something that people are fully engaged with up front, can sound like something they've heard before. People claim to have been offered a lot of similar sounding products and schemes over the years by government and energy companies, particularly citing cold calling and door knocking as being things which have irritated them. Whether or not that's kind of true, that's what people report back to us, which results in considerable cynicism being directed at energy companies in particular about some of their products and services. Additionally, in line with previous schemes, people expect any subsidies or advantages to be reserved for those in need, so the elderly or people on benefits. All this means that there's a sense that it might be just a rebranding of existing schemes, and that people are already aware of and have already dismissed. Additionally, the Green Deal risks being hard to understand and hard to trust. The government's current plan for launching it involves a soft touch central control in terms of branding and marketing of the proposition, allowing providers to use their own brands and messaging to market their own specific products without any kind of central push. When we put this to people, their reaction to a scenario that would result of multiple names and a lack of central messaging was that it would create a confusing situation and a lack of trust. People said things like, you know, it has to have a consistent national identity. If there are lots of names, you could get schemes that aren't what they seem. It's got to be advertised for people to be confident. And if Green Deal itself is used as a default name, which it's looking likely, that just seems to make the problem worse for people, given kind of high levels of green fatigue that we already know about, and a mistrust of, you know, the word deals, or deals per se. So people say, I'm not into green, it's bad enough sorting the dustbin. Deals are a bit overdone now, you get a bit sceptical and so on. So in summary, if the Green Deal is going to work for consumers, it needs to be communicated clearly, simply and consistently across the wide range of possible providers and supporters. Honesty, transparency and communicating the fact that the scheme is government-backed will be critical, and it needs to feel like it's something big, exciting and clearly differentiated from previous schemes, otherwise it risks being dismissed. In terms of stakeholders, so we've been talking to a wide variety of stakeholders as well outside of the Green Deal network to try and gauge opinion across all sectors. We've talked to charities such as the Centre for Sustainable Energy, the Green Alliance, the National Energy Foundation. We talked to businesses, so some involved in finance like Deutsche Bank, others involved in delivery like Ecotricity, Wilmot Dixon, and the Green Deal Finance Company themselves as well. We talked to trade bodies, so people like the CBI and the Green Building Council, and campaigning groups such as the Great British Refurb and Transition Towns. So what we've learned through this process is that this transition to a new market is not going to be a smooth process for all sectors. Potential new entrants such as retailers lack confidence about the scale of the opportunity in, you know, such an untested market. It's a completely new market for them. The picture is also far from clear with local authorities. While some are investing and innovating, like Birmingham and others, for many it's just not a priority yet, and they're kind of playing a wait-and-see game. Third sector organisations such as charities, community groups and housing associations say they will struggle to engage with something that isn't being marketed centrally, that doesn't have a consistent brand and set of messages, and kind of lacks broad public awareness when it launches. And it's a similar problem for small providers, so local businesses, who don't have the resources to construct their own propositions from scratch without any kind of central materials that they're being given. So what's needed really or what they're telling us is needed, is the creation of a mechanism to generate confidence and leverage investment and commitment from stakeholders during this transitional stage. So where does that lead us in terms of launching the Green Deal? We know that it has the potential to transform the way that energy efficiency gains are made in UK housing stock. But we also know that it's an extremely challenging market and targets are stretching, to say the least. Amongst others, the Climate Change Committee have written to DEC to raise serious concerns about low uptake. Their figures show that we need to reach 10 million homes by 2022 to deliver on emissions targets. DEC's own impact assessment that they released during the consultation predicts that just 3.6 million will be upgraded by then, so quite a difference. However, we also know that consumers are open to the idea and can see its potential. But if the proposition is to cut through, it needs to be explained simply and consistently and must feel like a big, new and exciting scheme. Currently, we have a real worry that this isn't going to happen, and the scheme will fail to gather momentum, which could be terminal. As I said earlier, DEC's current launch plan involves minimal central support, with awareness being driven mainly through PR, and what that means for them is mainly ministerial announcements. I think they might be planning on doing a bit of consumer PR, but you know, you can't control how your message is delivered when you're working just through PR. As part of this process, we worked with a media agency to model various launch scenarios. Their modelling suggested that an optimistic figure for what this level of central activity might deliver would be only about 10,000 assessments in the first year. And obviously, if you think about how many actual green deals that might then convert into, it's not really enough. The plan is for only a soft or managed launch in October, with deliberately low volumes of installations, as it is highly likely that the financial systems will not be finalised and tested by then. Additionally, when the current energy company obligation ends and core installation measures like loft and cavity wall are no longer subsidised, it is expected that there will be a sharp drop-off in installations, potentially causing big problems for the insulation industry. And finally, while current plans do involve some essential kind of sticks and carrots, they are relatively weak in terms of what they need to achieve. For example, you may be aware of a capital fund of £200 million which has been set up to be made available for incentives. However, it's only being planned as at the moment as a cash reward once installations have already been completed. Some sticks have also been shelved. You may be aware of the recent U-turn that happened on what was known as the conservatory tax. But what this all means is there won't be a big bang launch as is currently planned, and there won't be a national vision created around the scale and urgency of the task. So to conclude, our conclusions from this work are therefore that in order to have a chance of long-term success, we need to maximise early take-up, and we need to create momentum around the launch of this scheme. This will require, firstly, the creation of a neutral and authoritative umbrella brand which can encompass the whole range of energy efficiency policies that will be available to consumers. We need to develop a sense of the big picture of why this is happening and make it feel new, big and different. A marketing push with coordinated government and provider activity will allow control of when and how messages are delivered. Actually investing in marketing rather than just relying on PR allows you to have that control. This should all be integrated with the accreditation mark and the advice service, and the £200 million incentive package should feel like it's part of the same strategy, not just a kind of afterthought bolt-on. Developing a toolkit of open source materials centrally would allow the central brand and messaging that's being created to be controlled and used by providers and supporters in their own ways in a consistent way. This central effort from government would leverage additional marketing spend from providers using centrally developed materials in their own marketing. It would make it easier for local authorities and housing associations to get involved, and it would allow third sector organisations to help develop this into a national movement. The net effect would be a consistently delivered message and the sum of the parts which was bigger than the whole. And as I say, we're continuing to discuss these proposals with the government and with stakeholders, and if in the meantime anybody would like to hear any more, then do get in touch.
How are you funded, Rob? I mean, your organisation, is it government funded?
Our organisation is funded in various ways. We divide our time between what we call campaigns, which are things that we create centrally. This is an example, which we get funded in a kind of charitable way, so by foundations or donations. So the Green Deal Network particularly is funded half by the Sainsbury Family Charitable Trust. Yeah, and then donations from the network themselves.
I mean, I wonder why you're so worried about what the government's doing, because they obviously don't know what they're doing. They're sort of running in different directions simultaneously, depending which department you're talking to. So, with the Treasury obviously rowing back furiously. So, why don't you just get on with it? I mean, business is in favour, so the financial sector is ready to support it. I mean, the guy who came this morning, Carl Bennett, was saying that there's about 14 billion quid's worth of investment waiting to go into this. So why don't you just go for it and forget about the government?
Well, I think I wouldn't say necessarily that the finance is ready to go. I think there's a lot of question marks still on that, particularly the actual mechanism for the financial mechanism for making these the green deals actually happen. That won't be in place, is what we're being told by October launch, so it'll still be in kind of testing phase. As I say, really, the kind of, I think what we as a group of organisations feel, and this includes people like British Gas and B&Q, who are who really want to be involved in this and really want to kind of deliver it, you know, they're saying that not enough work has gone into thinking about strategically how we're going to create demand for this in the first place. You know, Dexo.
Well, why don't B&Q do an advertising promotion on television themselves? Well, they do it far better than the government would.
That's kind of Dec's answer. Is that, you know, they're creating this market, they're relying on the market to kind of do it themselves.
The market can do it.
But what B&Q can do themselves is sell their own product. And the problem is there's a job that needs to be done here, which is, you know, what I said we learned from consumers is that if you just allow that to happen, it just feels like more of the same. So I, as a householder, I've had this from British Gas. They've been selling me, you know, installation stuff, free installation for years. I haven't taken it up. I'm not interested. I've dismissed the idea. And the problem is that this will just end up feeling like more of the same, unless some effort goes into making it into a big, new, different scheme.
And you think the government can make that difference, do you?
They're the only people who can, really.
Do you think so?
What business is saying to us is if the government invests centrally, they'll invest more. So, you know, if they see that something is being done centrally, then they will that will leverage extra investment from them. But at the moment, they're kind of nervous and they're holding back about what they'll actually do at launch. And you could end up with a real kind of damp squib.
Microphone. Peter.
I have a rule in my company: if you can't draw a picture of something, it doesn't exist. Actually, if you're going to change behaviour, you need pictures, not words. There's a great problem with intelligent people thinking that intelligence matters a lot. It's actually simple messages like pictures. And if you're not careful, you're talking intelligent words to sort of some intelligent people like me. And if you're going to explain this, I think you're going to explain it and you're going to convince people much better with pictures than words.
I could show you a picture. I don't know if it might be just too much to. But I mean, we actually when we tested this with people, we did. Not this computer. We did actually employ that principle and try to explain what the Green Deal is all about in a picture. And it actually, you're right, it did work well. The kind of you know, the issue with what we're talking about is, you know, is the only way that kind of work can be done really is if there is some kind of central impetus. Individual companies, their priority is going to be to sell their product. It's not to create this vision around a new energy efficiency kind of future.
It could be. Paul.
Yes, hello, I'm Paul Eakins, and thanks for your presentation. The question I'd like to ask follows on a bit from Robin's one earlier, because this energy efficiency issue in homes has been plagued by lack of consumer demand ever since I can remember, and I've been in the game a long time. And in the old days, we used to explain it by low energy prices, that it just wasn't worth it. But Which has now been quite active on this issue and has done consumer surveys which suggest, the last time I heard them make a presentation on this, that 97% of those surveyed are either worried or very worried about their energy bills and where they see them going. And yet, despite the fact that we've had 15 years of messaging about energy efficiency, and despite the fact that there's no doubt that the technical measures that still could be put in place could make a substantial difference to a significant number of those consumers' energy bills, the connection is not being made in consumers' minds between energy efficiency, the size of their bills, and the opportunities to reduce them. And as a mere economist who believes that people are affected by prices, I find this difficult to understand. You clearly have a rather broader palette of ways of understanding consumers. And I'd just be interested if you could talk briefly as to why you think there is this paradox and disconnect between people's worries about the size of their energy bills, but their complete failure to do anything about it by installing even the simplest energy efficiency measures themselves?
I mean, you're absolutely right that there is that paradox, and as you say, kind of how much work has gone into trying to persuade people to save energy, and kind of all of it has been about, you know, save money, this insulation is going to save you money, etc., etc. I think the problem is that people don't think rationally, about their economics, and these things exist in different buckets. So when people think about their energy bills, that exists in the bucket of kind of personal finances. When they open their bills, they get annoyed about them, they get annoyed with the energy company. That's kind of filed in personal finances. When you think about making improvements to your home, that's a whole different set of emotions, drivers, barriers. And something like getting somebody in to install some insulation, or even bigger, to install some solid wall insulation, which is a huge kind of a huge big deal in terms of the interruption it's going to cause you. That people think about that in a whole different kind of bucket.
Well, it's disruptive. They do it from outside, don't they?
Not if it's inside solid wall,
okay.
which is kind of, I mean, that's one of the biggest things that the Green Deal needs to achieve is a huge increase in uptake of solid wall insulation. Yeah. But it requires builders to come into your house, create a load of mess, and your house is out of action for a couple of days or something. And in terms of people's priorities, when they're thinking about the house that they own and what they'd like to do with it, generally, if they're going to do something, it's about making it feel or look nicer. That's where their kind of first priority is. And it sounds kind of ridiculous when you go, well, hang on, your energy bill's so high and you're complaining about it, why don't you put two and two together? Unfortunately, that's just not how most people think. The link doesn't exist like that. They exist in two different kind of places in people's minds. I don't know if that has helped to explain things or confuse issues.
Well, it tells us the problem, it doesn't give us a solution.
No, I mean, if I can just go back to that benefits slide. I mean, the kind of, if you can boil it down to those three benefits, you've got a really compelling package and something which is different from what people have heard before. Improved warmer home, that's fine, that's something people have heard before. Lower energy bills, long term, fine, okay, I've heard that before. The difference is that you kind of, one of the key barriers of having to pay out a big amount, boiler can cost £2,000+, double glazing, can cost thousands of pounds. Solid wall insulation itself costs a hell of a lot. That barrier is just completely removed, and once people understand that, that's a real leap in terms of it being a compelling proposition. And I think that's what we need to try and get across to people. Otherwise, as I say, this is just going to feel like more of the same, and people are going to be able to dismiss it.
Why don't you have a simple slogan like warm home, cool planet, no extra charge? Sums it up, doesn't it?
Well, absolutely. I mean, we've presented a couple of ideas to Chris Hume, who bought into them.
Yeah.
Ideas that weren't Green Deal, most importantly, because that just doesn't work.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what you need is to put some put some money behind promoting that and getting out there.
They could do it.
No, the problem is B&Q need to sell their own product. They need to sell B&Q's Energy Saver scheme, and it's too much of a job for one piece of marketing to do two separate jobs, a big vision and a specific product sell. So that's the problem. And we know that from talking to people like British Gas and B&Q, who tell us what their plans are and what they're going to do.
Well, you ought to talk to Carl Bennett, because he understands the finance of this very well, and his view is that big business is just waiting for this to happen, and that if the government doesn't do it, then business will do it.
They might do it, but they might do it slowly, and if enough people don't.
What do you think, Peter?
Well, how do you think this will help you? How do you think this will help you? The government says, look, we're going to impose a fossil fuel tax on everybody and everything. Gas. That is going to put up your cost of heating at home and everything else. But you can have some cash back. You can have the cash, you aren't going to be any worse off actually. You're going to have the cash back. But if we meet these targets, then we're not going to increase the tax. But the targets are going up. And if we don't meet them, we're going to increase the tax. And if we exceed them, we'll decrease the tax. Wouldn't that be something that people could get hold of and say, hey, you can help yourselves? Not only individually, but nationally, and give a flag, a picture in people's minds. Because I don't think they've got the picture. People don't believe words, they believe pictures.
I'm not sure how to answer that, if there is even a question in there.
Well, what? Don't you think it would help? Don't you think it would give people something to grab onto that can help?
I mean, I think they'd probably end up waiting until the tax rise came and then complaining about energy companies putting their prices up. I don't think they'd do anything about it until they had to, and then they'd complain about prices going up. I don't know.
The way government ought to solve it, this is my little suggestion, is that they load tax on energy use, so that the more you use, the more you pay per unit of energy. I mean, you've got to protect the poorest households. That's always the objection to increasing the price of energy. But if you actually have a system whereby it gets increasingly expensive the more you use, that would give people a very powerful incentive to insulate their homes. I can't see what's wrong with that idea.
It's tricky, I mean, isn't it? It's penalising people who have a bigger home but
Absolutely.
But less
Yeah.
income. I mean, I don't know.
What sort of people have a big home and no income, exactly?
Plenty of people. I don't know. I mean,
There's no problem, it's the answer. But anyway, there we are.
if you think so.
Thank you very much.
Okay.